Okay, so the topic of this talk is, does dietary fiber stabilize the blood-brain barrier? It's a very important thing because during the daytime, your neurons are busy while you're active, and they have to maintain precise microenvironment, ionic gradients, for example. And the brain has a protective blood-brain barrier that prevents toxic things that are floating around in the blood from getting into the brain substance, the brain parenchyma. And what's interesting, and the reason I'm giving this talk, is because the same things that protect your gut barrier, prevent leaky gut, they also tend to protect your blood-brain barrier. And so here, for example, is a paper showing mechanisms of blood-brain barrier protection by microbiota-derived short-chain fatty acid. What that means is you eat the dietary fiber, and microbiota just means the bacteria in your gut. They convert your dietary fiber into short-chain fatty acids. In particular, it's these three fatty acids: acetate, 2-carbon fat; butyrate, 4-carbon fat; propionate, a 3-carbon fat. The relevance is that actually 2/3 of the energy for your colonic lining cells, epithelial cells of the gut, the enteric lining cells, the gut's called the enteric tract. So they're sometimes also called enterocytes. Site means cell. So butyrate is a 4-carbon fatty acid. These are all short because they have a few number of carbons, just 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so butyrate is about 2/3 of the energy of the colon lining cells, and they use a lot of that energy to make tight junctions. Here's a picture of the blood-brain barrier, and you can see the lining cells of the blood-brain barrier, the brain capillaries, are endothelial cells, and in between them they have the tight junctions here. So these are tight junction proteins, and the short-chain fatty acids are used to build these tight junctions in the blood-brain barrier of the brain and in the gut. The gut also has tight junctions. The cells lining the gut are called enterocytes for the enteric tract. Endo means inside. Endothelial is the inner cells. Okay, this is just the basement membrane, also called the basal lamina. Around that are the astrocytes. They're supporting cells. I think of them as like the mommy cells of the brain. And then these are the neuron cells. They're the cells that actually do the communication and the thinking, so to speak. But the point of it all is that your short-chain fatty acids are used by these cells to maintain their tight junctions, and you need that. If you don't have that, if you have a leaky junction here in the brain, you'll get chemicals and toxic substances, albumin, etc., fatty acids, etc., getting around your brain parenchyma, and they'll distort the microenvironment of the neuron, and that can cause brain fog. It can cause emotional problems, so it can have a psychiatric effect as well. All right, so here they say, bacterial fermentation, so bacterial conversion of dietary fibers in the intestine to the short-chain fatty acids, is critically important for the preservation of blood-brain barrier integrity. Okay, so that's an important point. Okay, and part of where this is all going is it's the species-specific diet. This is what humans are made to eat. Here's some nice slides. I got these from Gurmeet Singh Manghu. He's a nutrition expert. He specializes in nutrition issues related to India. Okay, he gave me these slides. Anyways, here's the first one. Animal foods have no fiber. 0 fiber. That's why, if you eat that stuff, you're not going to get any fiber. Fiber is found just in plants. So you eat regular whole food plants, you get plenty of fiber. Okay, average American, I think, was getting around 15, grams of fiber, whereas, it's pretty easy to get over 50. I checked my diet one time. I was getting around 100. Okay, oil and fat and sugar have no fiber in them. So if you're just, some people want pure sugar. Well, I know that Kempner gave his patients some pure sugar. He was doing that specifically to reduce nitrogen intake in kidney failure patients because he wanted to protect their kidneys. Okay, but just, maybe right before a workout, I could see some people doing that. But habitually, you don't get the other nutrients, so it's not great. And oil is like the worst, okay? Don't let anybody ever tell you oil's a good food. That's like the path to being a chump. Okay, here's just another paper speaking about the benefits of the blood-brain barrier, how fiber protects the blood-brain barrier. And this was an example showing it's protective in a stroke, to reconstitute the blood-brain barrier to protect the penumbra. So when you have a stroke, the central part is completely dead, the brain cells. That's called necrosis. But surrounding the centrally dead cells are what is called the penumbra. Penumbra means twilight. So you can think of the dead cells in the darkness, the functional cells in the light, and the borderline cells in the penumbra, the twilight, meaning that they have a deficiency of oxygen and glucose delivery enough to make them dysfunctional, but they're not dead, and they could potentially be restored to normal function. So eating the adequate amounts of fiber helps protect the blood-brain barrier so you don't get more toxic chemicals in there leading to loss of the penumbra. Okay, that's why patients who have a stroke will sometimes get a little bit worse soon after. They're losing their penumbra, could be an explanation for that. Okay, high fructose corn syrup diets, they cause problems with the blood-brain barrier. Same thing with excessive psychological stress can damage the blood-brain barrier. We talked about EMF can partially open up the blood-brain barrier. So you've always got things that are working to help you be more healthy and resilient and have optimized cognitive function. And you got things that are working against you. So excessive psychological stress, bad. Excessive high fructose corn syrup, bad. Excessive EMF, bad. But I thought this was quite interesting that and I've often seen this connection that things that are good for the blood-brain barrier tend to be good for the gut too. Excessive psychological stress will also cause leaky gut. Excessive high fructose corn syrup in the diet is also associated with leaky gut. Okay, so it's just a thing that humans need to eat. And basically, we talked about the most common dietary deficiencies are lack of dietary fiber, lack of dietary potassium, lack of dietary magnesium, lack of dietary antioxidants, because it all comes from plant foods, and most people in westernized countries don't eat enough plant foods. So, anyways, I thought that was interesting. The blood-brain barrier gets a protective effect from dietary fiber, and specifically from the dietary fiber conversion into short-chain fatty acids, which are used to maintain the tight junctions of both the gut lining and of the blood-brain barrier.